Okay, this week we are going to be reading a short story called Seventh Grade. Kind of thought it'd be fitting since we're in seventh grade, and it is written by Gary Soto. So, what we're going to be doing this first lesson here is activating your prior knowledge. So, I'm going to be asking you some questions to kind of get you to make connections and think what you've been through and then connect it to the story. And then we're also going to review some of the vocabulary that we will be experiencing in this short story. So the first question I want to ask you is, have you ever had a crush on someone? I'm assuming most of you will say yes. And if so, what did you try and do to get that person's attention? What did you try and do to make a good impression on them? Maybe you surprised them, you wrote them a note, maybe you bought them chocolates or flowers, or spent time with them, you texted them, Snapchatted them. I'm not really sure what you guys do nowadays, but just kind of think about an experience that you've been through, because the whole story is basically based upon the main character who has a crush on a girl and what he does to try and impress her. Now, some vocabulary will be easier for you, but some of it will not. So I'm just going to go through several words and kind of give you some examples to help you. The first phrase is called catechism class. Catechism class. The kind of hint that I give you here is a cross. So what do you think catechism class might be? It is a class that teaches about religion. So I went to a private school until 8th grade, and I had catechism class. This is where we learned about the Bible and about Jesus and things like that. So that will be a reference in our story. So just kind of remember catechism, a cross, religion, Jesus, something like that. The next one is ferocity. Ferocity. And I put the image of an animal here that is pretty ferocious. So what do you think it could mean to have ferocity? Hopefully, you're thinking about being fierce or intense. A state of being ferocious is another definition of it. Basically, it's just saying intense, like a lion or a tiger or maybe a bear. I kind of think of that new Netflix series that came out over COVID, Tiger King. Okay, if you can try and think about what ferocity means in relation to that, then that could be a good example for you. So far we've had catechism class, which is about religion, and ferocity, which is being ferocious or intense and fierce. The next word is herded. So I found an image that I thought would kind of help you. There is a farmer with a lot of sheep here. What does it look like he is doing? Hopefully you think that means or looks like he is moving them all in the same direction in a big group. Basically, herding is just taking a big group of people or animals and moving them to a different location or somewhere, and someone's leading them. So I could herd you to the library or out the classroom door, just kind of big group, all moving together. Linger. A lot of students like to linger in the hallways during passing period or linger after school. After the bell has rang. This gentleman here is lingering and peeking outside the door. So what do you think the word linger might mean? To hang around longer than necessary is the best definition there. So basically it just means that the time may be up for something, but you're still kind of hanging around, not leaving when you're supposed to or when the time is up. Okay, portly. Portly is an adjective to describe something or someone. So I gave you the example of Santa Claus. Now, when you see Santa Claus, think of Santa Claus, I feel like there's a few things that stick out. His beard, his belly, and maybe he has a red coat. Well, the word portly to describe Santa Claus would mean someone who is maybe stout, which means kind of short, and has a round body. So short and a round body. So his belly is kind of one of his staples for being Santa Claus. So we've had catechism class, which is religion class. We've had herded, so moving in a group. We've had portly, which is someone who's kind of short and a little bit round. And then we've also had linger, staying somewhere longer than you're supposed to. Propelled. Propelled is a verb, so it's an action. So think about what this plane is doing in this image. Hopefully you thought that it was moving or pushing in a specific direction. So typically planes go forward. So it's propelling forward, going through out into the atmosphere. Quiver. Quiver can have multiple definitions, but for the purposes of this story, it's going to be a verb. And if you look at this little girl, she looks like she's kind of like obviously not happy. Maybe she's scared a little bit, but she's acting in such a way that we would say she is quivering. Quivering meaning to tremble or shake. So maybe you're scared, maybe you're nervous. Either way, you are quivering. You're kind of like you're on edge just a little bit. Scowl. Scowl is what this man is doing. Um, it's kind of like a mixture between like an angry look, but also like you can be kind of trying to look cool if you just like stare at somebody but you're not smiling. Best definition is an angry expression or a grimace. But once again, it can also be if you're scowling at somebody, it can maybe you're trying to get their attention, not necessarily in a good way. But that's just an example of what scowling is. So the three new ones that we learned are propelled, which means to go forward, quiver, which means to shake, maybe you're scared, and then scowl is like an angry expression on your face. Sometimes students do this to me if I make them upset. Sheepishly. That is very hard to say. Sheepishly. 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 Wow. It is an adjective to describe what someone is feeling or they're doing. So look at this emoji. What do you see here, this emoji? They're kind of looking away. Maybe their face is flushed a little bit. Hopefully you think they're embarrassed maybe. So if you are acting sheepish, you're maybe embarrassed because you said something or you did something. Now we're talking about having a crush and doing something for someone that you have a crush on. So I'm assuming someone's going to be embarrassed here at some point in time in our story. And I think this is our last one, unison. So we've got a group of people here from the military. They are running together. So in unison, we would just mean that they are performing an action or a speech all together. So if I say, class, can you please repeat after me? And then you say the same thing at the same time, you are talking in unison. Or if you are all doing the same thing at the same time, you are performing an action in unison as well. So those are the vocabulary words. Hopefully you can kind of understand them. I urge you to practice them on your own because they will be used throughout the story and maybe on your assessment at the end. But think about which one maybe you like the best or that you were able to understand and recognize the best. Whether it was unison, doing something at the same time together, sheepish, you're embarrassed, scowl, you're a little bit angry, quiver, you're shaking, propelled, moving forward, portly, short with a round belly, linger, staying somewhere longer than you should, herded, moving all together in one big group, being ferocious, which means like being fierce or intense. Catechism class is that class with religion. So those are the vocabulary for this short story called Seventh Grade by Gary Soto.